Almost 6 months since the insurrection at the Capitol, the House and Senate coming to an agreement that will award the Congressional Gold Medal to the officers who defended the building. Seems like a layup, but not for 21 House Republicans. They just voted against it. These Republicans who find themselves in a pickle, how do you honor the heroics of the police in an event that you deny? Despite the facts, the video, the witnesses, and the accounts of the police who were there protecting them, these lawmakers who usually wrap themselves in blue are now proudly showing their yellow.
Lauren Boebert, a once QAnon-curious congresswoman, she tweeted on January 6th, "Today is 1776, which of course signifies revolution and independence. Days before, she also used this rhetoric.
I will carry my firearm in D.C. and in Congress.
During the insurrection, she used her Twitter account to announce to the public and thereby any insurrectionist who might look that Speaker Pelosi had been removed from chambers. But in May, during National Police Week, she proclaimed that, quote, Republicans will always back the blue and honor their service. Always being the suspect word there.
Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, actual QAnon curious, she says she didn't vote for the bill because she wouldn't call it an insurrection. She once introduced legislation that awards gold medals to police in Minneapolis and Portland who protect Americans from, quote, Black Lives Matter domestic terrorists. She also said, in the face of this dangerous threat, our men and women in blue have stood strong by defending our streets, protecting storefronts, and restoring order. The heroic action of American law enforcement is the only force standing between us and total anarchy.
So this is John Rose of Tennessee.
Low morale is permeating police departments across our nation as rioters and lawbreakers repeatedly vilify, demonize, and verbally attack the thin blue line. At a time when police forces around the nation are themselves under attack, I want our law enforcement officers to know that I will continue to support the thin blue line.
Except when he doesn't. Rose also declared that, quote, if we do not support our police and stand up to this unprecedented violence, we will lose our democracy. We must use our freedom to defend our freedom, or we will lose our freedom.
And meet Andrew Clyde of Georgia. Even though he actually barricaded the door in the House chamber against rioters, he has a unique take on that experience.
You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January the 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit.
Now, Clyde also honored law enforcement during National Police Week. Quote, having worked with law enforcement for over 30 years, I know the risks our brave officers undergo on a daily basis. Thank you to the men and women of the Georgia police forces and across our nation for keeping us safe every day. Hashtag back the blue. A tourist visit, he says. Well, here's what one of the officers protecting Clyde's life says.
It was very scary because I thought I was going to lose my life right there.
So Andy Harris of Maryland also voted against the medals. He says he commends the Capitol Police for their actions on January 6th, but calls the awarding of medals a politically charged publicity stunt. Notable, he was a big supporter of Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
And Jody Heiss of Georgia, he also has recognized the need to honor police heroes, in the past at least. Ditto for Bob Good of Virginia, said proud to stand with law enforcement. And Tom Massey of Kentucky.
He tells CNN that he can't support the medals because the bill calls the attack an insurrection instead of a mob, and that language would affect the court cases of those who mobbed.
Matt Gaetz of Florida, he also says Americans need to stand by police.
I want an America where we support the police, where we utilize every resource available to ensure that they're responsive to their communities, and the overwhelming number of people who wear that uniform, whether it's in our law enforcement or in our National Guard, they do it because they love America and they love Americans, and we need to stand with them.
But all these members voted against the medals, as did Matt Rosendale of Montana, who last month declared that he'd always stand behind law enforcement, the ones who selflessly put their lives on the line to protect his family. Apparently always has limits. Ralph Norman of South Carolina wrote an op-ed last summer denouncing the left's effort to defund police, declaring that he will, quote, always stand behind our law enforcement agencies and those who serve their communities honorably. There must be a mutual two-way trust, again, with the always.
Now Chip Roy of Texas, here he is just 3 weeks ago.
So I'm proud to stand here with so many of these great friends, to stand up in defense of our law enforcement community, stand up in defense of safe streets.
Scott Perry of Pennsylvania.
It is National Police Week, and we're here to not only honor the fallen, but to also honor those who sacrifice every day and every night at any time, in any place, under any conditions for our safety in our communities. When elected leaders refuse to stand with our law enforcement officers and continue to bend to the whims of violent mobs, we lose our civilization. We lose our civil society.
Again, he voted against the medal, so let's play that last part one more time from Scott Perry of Pennsylvania.
When elected leaders refuse to stand with our law enforcement officers and continue to bend to the whims of violent mobs, we lose our civilization. We lose our civil society.
Also voting against medals for Capitol and D.C. police officers, Warren Davidson of Ohio.
And our law enforcement protect that right. They defend freedom. They protect and defend our communities. They do it heroically with bravery every day, and so often thanklessly. We're right to give them thanks. They put their lives in harm's way.
They do it thanklessly, he says. Ain't that the truth? Greg Stubbe of Florida.
Since last summer, members of law enforcement have faced attacks and dangerous rhetoric, even from members of this body. As officers put their lives on the line to protect all of us, our communities, and our families, we have seen nothing but dangerous attempts from the left to defund, dismantle, and disband the police. Even as we stand here today, surrounded by razor wire, National Guard, increased police present to protect you, but you don't want them to protect our citizens.
This is Mary Miller of Illinois.
Democrats are about defunding the police and taking away our Second Amendment rights. Republicans are here to back the blue and the Second Amendment.
Back the police, she voted against the medal. This is Michael Cloud of Texas.
We owe it to our hardworking police officers who dedicate their lives to upholding the law, to give them the respect and provide them with the resources, training, and support they need to do their jobs safely and effectively.
They owe police officers respect, says Cloud, who disrespects the very police officers who ensure his safety day after day. And then there's Paul Gosar of Arizona.
I strongly support law enforcement, firmly disavow the groups and individuals funding, enabling, and partaking in mob violence, and call on my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to do the same.
Now, Gosar also has a unique take on the officers protecting the building against his workplace and democracy while questioning the FBI director yesterday.
Director Ray, do you know who executed Ashley Babbitt? Yeah, it's disturbing. The Capitol Police officer that did the shooting, Ashley Babbitt, appeared to be hiding, lying in wait, and they gave no warning before killing her.
Now, Babbitt was one of the rioters appearing on video trying to break into the Capitol. Gosar accuses officers of hiding, lying in wait, before, quote, executing her.
And then there's Barry Moore of Alabama also voting against this recognition for police officers. He was grateful for Capitol Police who bravely defended the Capitol back in January, but by June, he was voting against giving them these medals.
And finally, one Louis Gohmert, notorious flamethrower who recently asked the National Forest Service if it's possible to change the moon's orbit to fix the climate crisis. Yes, he said that. He too has a unique take on the insurrection.
There's no evidence, as has been said on January 7th, that this was an armed insurrection. Armed meaning with firearms. There were no firearms. There have been things worse than people without any firearms coming into a building.
Look, there is evidence, loads of it. And those people who came into the building threatened the lives of police officers, trampling on them, assaulting them, torturing them. Even though in that same month, Gohmert declared that we must hold law enforcement officers in high esteem.
And these 21 Republicans are voting against these medals for these officers. These officers.
It was very scary because I thought I was going to lose my life right there. I remember specifically thinking it when I was on the floor. I remember thinking all that stuff like, Byron, this is the day. All those times you've given thought on what you would do, you're doing it.
I have a daughter, and I had a moment where I didn't think that, hey, it was a possibility I might not make it home.
The rioters continued to deploy CS into the rotunda. Officers received a lot of gas exposure, which is worse inside the building than outside because there's nowhere for it to go. I received chemical burns to my face that still have not healed to this day.
But here's the thing. Those officers, they'll keep doing their jobs protecting these members of Congress, whether they vote to give them a customary and clearly deserved